once we get up to apoapsis, this thing is going to perform orbital insertion for me. So as we cross these radiation belts, I really want to pay attention to how much radiation these folks are being exposed to. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! A coronal mass ejection. Hello everyone, we are here in low orbit with the Minmus 2. This is a lander that we inserted last episode, and I do plan on getting it down to the surface, but it's got a ton of science to collect in low orbit first, so we're going to leave it here for now. The big thing this episode, though, is going to be I'm going to put a couple of Kerbals into a polar orbit about the moon, so we'll be talking about how to get into a polar orbit, how to return back to Kerbin from a polar orbit. In addition, with Kerbalism in play, we have magnetic fields and radiation to deal with, and this is going to be my first Kerbals outside of Kerbin's protective magnetic field. I'll let you know it doesn't go without incidents. I do have some challenges, once again, with electricity, life support, I will get to all that. And just for an extra kick in the teeth, Kerbalism decides to send a coronal mass ejection our way, but that's all for later. What I want to do right now, though, is I'm looking at the automation features built into Kerbalism. Called when available storage goes below 15%. Okay, this is the kind of stuff I should look at. So, when the drive is close to being full, because I seem to run into that issue a lot, we're going to turn off, well, let's just turn off everything. Even though the other ones aren't collecting. And when the drive is empty, goes above 90. Yeah, let's do it based on drive rather than electricity, because that's often one of the things that runs out on me. So there. Landed, I don't care, Atmos, space, radiation low, radiation high, EVA, okay, oh my gosh, oh wow, look at all this. Okay, there we go. Okay. When the power is low, we're going to deactivate the antennas. And we're going to turn off experiments. Maybe that's a better way to do it. When the power is high, we'll turn everything back on. I was doing it based before on whether it was in the shadow, but maybe this is a better way. And then this stuff will just leave. Okay, when we're unlinked, we'll turn off the antennas because they obviously are serving no purpose. That's when we go into the communication shadow with Minmus. And then we'll turn them back on when we're linked. All right, let's see how this. We've got some time. I can see we're about to lose. There's Kerbin. I think we'll be losing our signal with Kerbin before we lose our sunlight. But let's see how this works. Here, put this on free. There we go. So as Kerbin sinks below the horizon. Oh, what happened here? Minmus 2. Oh, that was just my alarm to say go to Minmus 2. I'm already here. Okay. Okay, there goes Kerbin. We lost our... We still have our signal. Should be disappearing any moment, for goodness sakes. Oh, there we go. Oh, and all the antennas retracted. Oh, and now I can't look at what's going on anymore. Okay. So let's see. We can watch it from this, I think. We are still collecting data. I can see our storage capacity going down. This is still going, but let's keep going, see what happens when the sun goes down. Oh, when the sun goes down, nothing should happen, but stuff should start to happen if our electricity goes down. So our electricity charge is being drained. Oh. I've just noticed this capacity has stopped. See that? So I think it got up to close to full capacity. I should just do this all the time. Insufficient storage. You guys weren't supposed to... You guys shouldn't be going anyway. Oh wait, well, telemetry... Okay, I'm confused now. We gotta get our signal back before I can see what's going on with... Okay, here comes the sun. Oh, and there's Kerbal. Okay, no, we don't have our signal back yet. There goes our signal. Okay. So, I'm very confused. Why did it fill up the hard drive? It's supposed to turn off all that stuff. Oh my gosh. You know what? Whatever. We're going to leave this to its own devices. I'm sure it'll work itself out. Let's get to our moon launch. Alright, so it's Valentina and Orlin as our scientists. This is almost the same vehicle that you saw last episode. The big difference is, let's get rid of the alarm clock, is I took off the mystery goo and the Science Junior, which now in hindsight is kind of a mistake because I thought that the other one would collect all kinds of mystery goo and Science Junior stuff, materials-based stuff, and well, we know that it didn't. From last episode, I completely botched the re-entry and lost all my data. So, or lost my samples, I suppose. Switch to 0. So I'll have to deal with that. So there won't be any mystery goo or anything to collect. But what is actually new? Not so much in the ship, but actually in my my Ascent script. I have been playing in the interim between these two episodes. Let me list. Go to here and list all my programs that we have. There's everything I got stored on the hard drive of my computer. And the one I want to draw attention to is this launch one. That one's the new one. It is exactly this Ascent script, but I've added on some extra code. It will now do the entire circularization. You can see it's actually kind of large, and I'll explain why. 13 kilobytes, which is bigger than what can fit onto the KOS computer core without a couple of upgrades to it. So I'm going to run this from the KSC. I think that's kind of fair to run this from the KSC, given that it's a launch script. But going to launch. It works exactly the same because a lot of it's the exact same code. Going into 0 inclination and 80 kilometer orbit. We'll hit that. And we should be off. This part is exactly what you've seen so many times in the past, except the difference is once we get up to apoapsis, circularization and the orbital insertion forming. And it turned out, actually, I should have done this a long time ago, because once I had that maneuver executing script that you've seen me use a few times, actually quite a few times, stitching the two programs together, taking the Ascent portion of the script, which is running on right now, the maneuver executing part of the script, all that was necessary to stitch those two together was to create a function that would create the maneuver node that would do the orbital insertion, and that turned out to be very easy. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you right now because the program is running, so what I'll do is once the program is finished doing its job, we'll take a look at the little bit that I had to add in there, and I'll also talk about why this file size got as huge as it did. 60 kilometers. It's going to stage the fairing. Oh, okay, that could go better. And it's going to deploy deployable equipment. We should get some doors opening, an antenna coming out. Yeah, we got all that. I still don't have control of this. Now, it's not going to do anything until we're actually in space, so it's going to wait until we're 70 kilometers, but I'm going to show you what's going to happen from here. Once we are in space, whoops, there we go. We should get the maneuver node. Are we almost there? Almost. 69 kilometers. Okay, and there. It just created a maneuver node at apoapsis to do the circularization. And it's now running... Oh, we still got a fairing in our way. It's now running the X-Man script that you're used to seeing. I can put our lights on. I think I can do that. Yep, let's do that. Oh man, that annoying fairing. Well, once we accelerate, this will be out of the way. Hopefully, it shouldn't hopefully do any damage. Alright, so according to KSP, only 20 seconds to the burn. I'm not quite sure. Mine's usually pretty close to what the game thinks I should start the burn at. Though, interestingly, sometimes it can be quite different. There it goes. Burn in 3, 2, 1. About a sec. Oh, and there goes our fairing. I hope that didn't break off an antenna. Nope, the antenna's still there, so that's good. And again, I'm not doing any of this. Well, you can probably tell how it's like full thrust and just, you know, I'm usually poking away at this. Though this does a better insertion than I can do, so I'm pretty happy with it. Alright, reducing throttle at the end. And done. So burn is complete. What do we got? 80.1 kilometers, but... Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Shoot. Program just ended and... Okay, whatever, we'll deal. I must have had the throttle on when I started the program. I noticed when the program ended, the throttle came on. Probably my sticky finger hit the shift key just before executing that program. Okay. So the orbit momentarily was pretty close to being circular. Now it's a little messed up. Alright, let's take a look at the program very briefly. So edit, what am I editing? It's launch. That was the name of it. Okay, and it is, as I warned, pretty long. So we're not going to take a look at the whole thing, but I will explain why it turned out to be as long as it did. Open this all up. Alright, so here's our main function once again. All of this is the same as what I've shown people before. There are 2 extra method calls down here at the bottom. The absolute last one is Xman, which is very... I'll get to it in a second, but it's pretty much the maneuver executing code that you've seen before. I just copied that code into this program as well. You can, by the way, get programs to call other programs, but I didn't bother doing that. I just copied code over. But the new one I created is this one, circ node, which creates the maneuver node that performs the circularization. And if we scroll down, we should be able to find it. That's the whole auto deploy circ node. Oh no, I'm into the Xman. Where's circ node? There's circ node right up here. So function circ node, it's really very simple little function. So first of all, it waits until the altitude hits 70 kilometers so that we're in space. The reason for that is because before you're in space, your apoapsis is constantly changing. So I wanted to wait until the apoapsis wasn't going to be changing anymore before doing the node. Then what it does is it calculates what my velocity is going to be at apoapsis. And it bases that calculation on what my current velocity is, what my current altitude is, and what the altitude of apoapsis is, all of which stuff is easy to get. And then this formula just calculates what my velocity will be when I get to apoapsis. Then it calculates what's the velocity that I need to circularize at that altitude at apoapsis, which again is a pretty simple formula. It's right there. All you need to know is what the height of apoapsis is, and it will, you can calculate the circularization. And then the burn you need to perform is simply the difference between those two numbers. So KOS has a structure called node, which creates maneuver nodes for you. It takes, let's make this a little wider so that it's not wrapping around the way it is. Oh, and of course then it jumped, didn't it? Now I gotta find it again. Circ node, there we are. Okay, there is creating the maneuver node. You got to give it the time. That's the first parameter that goes into this structure. So the time that I need the node to be at is simply what's the time, the game time right now in seconds, plus what's my E2A to apoapsis, and that'll put the node right on apoapsis. And then I think this is radial, normal, and then this is the prograde part of the vector, and again, or the burn. And the prograde part is simply what's my velocity need to be, and what's my velocity right now. Or what will my velocity be at apoapsis. The difference is what your burn needs to be. That's it. That's all it is. After that, it gets into the Xman part of the script. There is my Xman main method. It's exactly the same as pretty much what you've seen before, but, and if you look at where my scroll bar is, you can see I'm about maybe a third of the way down through this program. All the rest of this is all about executing the maneuver, and the reason why it got so long is because I got a little bit, obsessed might be a little too strong of the word, but I was determined to make this thing be able to handle staging events. And that turned out to be a much tougher problem than I thought it was going to be. So a lot of these methods here, from basically this on down, is dealing with staging events. Now, the actual staging was easy. There's an auto stage function which is very similar to the auto stage function that's in the Ascent script, but then after this it was about, oh, you have to go iterating through the stages, you got to figure out how much fuel is in each stage, what the mass of each stage is going to be, and the way KSP deals with the stage numbers, I discovered, felt a little, to me it's a little weird. So this became pretty long to be able to calculate, well, if we're spanning multiple stages, how much burn time is that going to take? That took a long time to figure out. At least for me it took a long time to figure out, but it works. So at some point in the future I will show that to you, but right now let's get this out, let's get ourselves out towards the moon. So we're going to stage, yeah, there we go. We're getting rid of that booster, and again we'll deorbit that and try and get it close to the KSC. And let's put ourselves, open this up, onto a maneuver node here, or just expose the solar panels nicely. There we go. Should be generating lots of electricity now. And let's get ourselves out to the moon. So, the goal here is to go into a polar orbit. So right now, we're aiming to hit the moon smack dab in the middle. Alright, that's pretty much hitting it. Bang on. So that is coming in 17 minutes. So let's put on... Well, sorry, Val, but we're going to get KOS to do the burn for us since we have the scripts for this. I'm going to switch back to the ship, which is 1. So we're controlling from there. And this time we will copy. Now, I actually have 2 versions of that maneuver node executor. One of them still called X-Man, and that's the old one that you've seen before. And the X-Man script can't handle staging. The one that can handle staging I called X-Man STG, and it is, as you saw, significantly larger. So large that actually the probe core I have on this won't be able to hold it. So that's why I just have my regular X-Man script. I'm going to keep 2 separate ones. So most of the time you don't have staging in the middle of the burn. So I'm only going to, to save memory space in the vessel, I'll pick the one that I need. If I don't need staging, I'm not going to use the one that requires staging. But at some point, I will, and at that time, I'll show it to you. I got another new and short KOS program to show you a little later in this mission. Short, but I think useful. Alright. Run this. It's a pretty long burn because this is a pretty tiny engine. I'm using the Pug engine once again because I like it. One thing I noticed, I'm just noticing this recently, is the Pug engine actually has a little bit of liquid fuel and oxidizer, and you actually, looking at it now, you can see it. It's in these little cans. Whoops. Yeah, the Pug engine seems to be somewhere between the stock Spark engine, which often you just stick on the backs of probes, and the Terrier engine, which is often used for vessels like this one, but quite frankly, the Terrier's a little overpowered for this vessel. I haven't unlocked the Terrier yet either. I usually find when I stick the Terrier on something that looks like this, I end up having to nerf the thrust anyway, so you end up carrying a bigger engine than what you need, so I'd rather have this little tiny engine. There it goes. Now, as this pushes up here, let's take a look. There are radiation belts. So as we cross these radiation belts, I really want to pay attention to how much radiation these folks are being exposed to. One of the things that could be problematic with the way I'm used to playing this game is when I have a vessel that I want to keep returning from like the Munar Minmus, what I often do is aero brake around very slowly to get to the point where I get my capture without having to spend any without having to exert fuel for my capture using aero braking with Kerbin. But if you do that, you're going to end up spending especially time in this radiation belt quite I don't know. I'll have to see how that works out. Back on that one. Alright, almost there. Let's see how we do. Want to again hit the moon smack dab in the middle. Reducing throttle. Oh, overcooked just a smidge. So Valentina. Oh wait, the program's not done yet. Now the program is ended. I'm going to put you on to retrograde, and we're going to fix this just a bit. Turn the thrust down even. Because I really want to get into as polar an orbit as I can. That looks pretty good. And we'll just set up a normal burn like mid-course, because obviously we don't want to hit the moon, so we'll push our trajectory so we pass over one of the poles. But what I'm more concerned with is how do these two fare as they cross the radiation belts? Oh, we are getting close here. I think I'd best be served watching radiation. So right here it's telling me how much radiation we're being exposed to. I think this is the normal sort of back. Oh, now we're crossing a radiation belt. We can see the, oh my gosh, look at that spiking up. Wow. Look at that. It was 0.01 rads per hour, and we are increasing. Definitely don't want to have your Kerbal spending any decent amount of time. We're up to just over 10 rads per hour. Oh, there's a little warning light here. Yep. Alright, and let's see what happens when we exit this particular belt. Does it drop back down to like that background of 0.01 rads per hour again? You would think it should be higher, because you're protected in this zone. That's why these, well, it's not why those belts are there, but that's what they end up doing for us, doesn't it? Alright, we're coming out of the radiation belt. And now you can see our radiation dropping. Oh, the warning light just went away. Oh, and it does go back down to 0.1. Okay. So we're still in a protected zone here. Now, we have belt number 2. So this is a protected zone. This must be inside our magnetosphere, I guess is the idea. So you're all like nice and happy in this zone here. But I suspect when we cross this boundary, it's going to spike up again. So, coming out of, going through, we're crossing, yep, we're crossing a radiation belt again. Again, a big warning. It stopped at 2. So that inner belt, it's the little zone here, but that inner zone is definitely way worse than this outer zone. Again, radiation. How are they doing? Oh, they got 0.1 radiation stress. 0.1 or 1%, sorry, radiation stress. So clearly they can handle this. You can, by the way, add shielding to your ships to protect them, but clearly that's going to add weight. Okay, now it's dropping back down and back down to 0.1 again. Now our next radiation layer is that one. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe this is our protected 0.1 zone, our magnetosphere. Let's see what happens when we cross out of this. Because I can see we're about to cross out. And it is climbing. Lost signal. Okay. Oh, but it only climbs to 0.2, so not high. Oh, but a little gray warning coming up here. So everything outside of here, you are a little bit irradiated. So what that means is if you're going to put, like, for instance, a station around the moon and stuff, thinking about shielding is probably a good idea. Alright, I got a feeling this all stays the same after this. So, why don't we check in on our Minmus lander? Oh, is the site experiment done now? No, no, it stopped it because the hard drive was getting full. Now it's doing what it's supposed to do. Very weird. Again, it collects data faster than it can transmit it, it seems. P1 batteries are almost empty. Okay. Oh, gosh. P1 batteries, that's Valley and Bill, I believe. Alright, let's set an alarm for Minmin. We'll come back to you in an hour. Best check on Dan and Bill. I mean, they're supposed to be up here for 30 days, and we're early in on this. And already I'm running into trouble. Okay. What is using up power here? I want to keep the antenna raised because that keeps these guys happier if they have constant communication with home. There's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm not factoring this stuff in. Like, there's a scrubber running, there's pressure control running. Clearly that's using electricity. How much electricity that's using, I don't know, because I never seem to want to look. But I really should check these things out. Like, maybe I gotta think about this kind of stuff. Obviously I don't want to turn the scrubber and the pressure control off. Is the sun about to come up so that these guys will at least... Because I'm pretty sure if you run out of electricity, they can start to be in trouble. Because all that stuff's going to turn off. There's probably temperature control that turns off. They might freeze to death. Don't want that to happen. There is no more electricity in the P. Okay, that's not a good thing. How are you guys doing? They're all zeros still, so... Let's go to the sun comes up. There we go. Alright, so... Let's rotate this so it has some better sun exposure. Oh, of course I have to put the SAS on for that. And we'll obviously have to continue to keep an eye on these two. I mean, at least it's a short trip back down to the surface in case things really do start going badly. But clearly I have to start putting in more thought into the design of these orbiters. But for now, why don't we get ourselves back out to Minmus, where our lander has completed all of its low space science collecting and transmitting. So it's time to put this thing down on the surface. And although I have 1270 meters per second of delta V left, I do want to make this landing as efficient as I can, because after my initial landing I want to hop to as many different biomes as I can squeeze out of this thing. But we'll just put her down in here somewhere. So we're gonna... I don't want to get into doing normal corrections. That's what I meant by saving as much fuel as I can. I'm just gonna go where this thing naturally wants to take me. So we're gonna go around one more time. And we're gonna aim for this little zone in here. Of course, we're going to lose our communication. Right out here, it'll start to burn. There we go. I do want to watch alarm clock, make sure, no, the P2 is nowhere near getting to the moon, so we should be good. Don't want to come in too crazy shallow because of how high. And this is pretty freaking lumpy. But these plateaus are pretty high. Actually, maybe what we'll do, let's change up. Yeah, I'm going to changing my mind. Let's do it right now. I'm going to go for this plateau to be the first one. Then we'll hop into one of these. That'll be it. So we're going for that plateau right here. So, I think right here is a good spot to do our descent. Time warp off. I have no communication yet. Okay, that's going to change everything. I have no control of my probe because I don't. So let's wait to see when our communication kicks in, and then we'll choose what our landing spot's going to be. Should have seen that coming. Where's Kerbin? Oh, should be coming in pretty soon. How can I not see Kerbin yet? I mean, seriously, look. I'm looking right at it. I wonder if it has something to do with the scripts being called. Of course, I can't raise that the antennas are down, so that's why it's not coming. There's Kerbin. I have me a feeling that might have been a mistake. Having a script lower the antennas. Because now I'm suddenly not... Oh, for goodness sakes. I think the automation has screwed me up. Are you kidding me? Oh, this has got to work at some point. Here we go. Let's get into the automation. Oh, I can't because I have no signal. Oh! I'm gonna... Oh! No. That was my imagination. Getting excited. And try as I might, no, those antennas were staying down. I wasn't going to get a connection out of this thing. I just immediately assumed with the automation that when it said there was a connection available, that it would somehow sense that there was a potential connection and then raise the antennas. Maybe that was a foolish assumption to make. Now, what's weird is when we got out here, I actually had the connection, and in fact, as you saw earlier in this video, the antennas were raising and lowering as I came from one side of Minmus to the other. But the thing is, I had two sets of triggers that were raising and lowering the antennas. One had to do with whether I was on the far side or the near side of Minmus relative to Kerbin, but the other had to do with power. When my power got below 20%, it lowered the antennas, and when my electrical storage got higher than 80%, it raised the antennas. And I think what happened was, before, when the experiments were running, they were draining power on the dark side, so the electricity would end up dropping below 80%, and then when it got into the sun and the battery power came up above 80%, that's what raised the antennas. Now that the experiments are done, that amount of electricity is no longer being drained, and the batteries never get below 80%, so there's nothing to trigger those antennas going back up again when we start charging up again. I have that theory. I think that's the theory. I think it's more of an electrical issue. And speaking of electrical issues... Oh, shoot! Oh, the P2 has no electric charge. The life support has been turned off. Shoot. Oh, these panels are on their edge. I need to turn the ship. Oh no. And we have no... Shoot. I can't control it. I have no RCS on this, right? There's no monoprop on this? Damn. I can't get out an EVA and just push it around. Alright, so we have run out of electricity. And both our solar panels are edge on to the sun. Now, this one's generating just a little bit. But clearly not enough. I'm not convinced, because I had this pointed straight at the sun, and in my mind, I don't know, maybe my mind's not that good. I figured it should stay that way. Let's turn off those lights. But clearly not. And we are flat dead out of electricity. If I had some monopropellant aboard, I could EVA and just get a Kerbal to just give it a little shove. Is there vectoring on this engine? No. I could have turned it with the main engine. I has me an idea. I has me an idea. And it may or may not be a smart idea. But if I turn on one of these separatrons that are part of the abort system, this thing will go into a tumble. I think I'd better, because I don't think anything else to do. If I just activated one of these engines, I can't turn the throttle down from here nor remove the amount of solid fuel, so when it goes into a tumble, it's going to be a mad tumble. But I'm hoping I should do the one of the ones here that's sort of opposite the sun, so it sort of tumbles that way. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's do it. There it goes. Okay. Let's generate some electric charge. We are slowly, it's working, we're generating electric charge. Oh my gosh, what I should do is deactivate the one that's opposite to that, so that if I ever do get stupid enough to fire those for some reason, that this is stupidly working. It's kind of working though, isn't it? Like, it's not great working. What can I turn off? Here, view. Locked. There we go. Okay, let's turn off stuff. There is an antenna. I know you guys won't like me turning it off, but it's going off. Retract the antenna. There is secondary life support tucked in here somewhere. There, it's under here. Oh, I could have oh my god, I got a fuel cell on this thing. I got a fuel cell that burns a bit of oxygen and can generate electricity. I could have turned that on just momentarily. Okay, let's turn that off. I'm not convinced. Oh, that actually, turning that off, I'm now actually charging. The humidity controller, turn that off. We'll turn that on again a little bit. Oh my gosh, monoprop. Oh, it needs monoprop and oxygen, so I don't have monoprop on that thing, so that thing's useless. Great, there's something to think about. Gotta put monoprop on these vessels for multiple reasons, whether you have RCS or not. Oh, and while we're on ideas to deal with my design oversights, back to the Minmus 2, I do have relay antennas unlocked right now. I do have an idea that I might be able to resurrect that thing and bring it down to the surface anyway, but you know what? That is going to have to be for a future episode. Let's see, what else can I turn off? Can't disable the habitat while crew is inside. Aw, you're no fun at all. What if I turned off the scrubber temporarily? That's making a big difference. Just gotta watch them. Okay, and if we can get SAS on, okay. Can I make this any more complicated? Oh my gosh. Okay. And it didn't take too long to build up enough of a charge that I felt I could turn on the SAS again safely, and then eventually bring this vessel under control. And then after turning on everything that I had just turned off, we were able to get into the moon's sphere of influence without any more difficulties. Now I'm going to show you something that hopefully makes me feel a little less like an idiot. Is you saw that circularization portion of my ascent that did the orbital insertion after these guys got into orbit. Well, I do have a program that is based around that is called, let's copy it in here, it's really tiny. Oops, that's an O, not a 0. Called circat. There we go. And what I should be able to do is say run circat, and I should be able to put in periapsis. Hit enter. And it just created the circularization burn at periapsis for me. So I can write circ at apo or circ at periapsis, and it just makes it. And again, this is an extraordinarily, like if we list here and take a look, it's less than 1 kilobyte. It's pretty simple. Let's take a quick look at it. So what you do, here's the main function right here, and these are getting wider with their formulas. Okay, so function circ at, it takes a parameter called location. So that's the part that goes in the little brackets. If that location is apo, what it's going to do is very similar to before. It's calculating what its velocity is going to be at apoapsis. It's going to calculate what circular orbital velocity, what velocity is required to create a circular orbit at that altitude. And again, creates a new node by simply subtracting those two. And if I enter anything else besides apo for apoapsis, it's going to do the same thing, except this time it's looking at periapsis and doing the same calculation again. The burn just simply being the difference between what velocity you need to circularize and what velocity is going to be when you get there. And then it just adds the node. That's it. It's done. So pretty neat, I think. Time for a high space EVA report. And of course Orlin here has no EVA propellant, so you best hang on. Oh, I gotta start putting monopropellant on all of these vehicles. Number 1, so that I can do EVAs without worrying about letting go. And number 2, so I can run that monoprop fuel cell and get myself out of all of these idiot problems where I run out of electricity. And stop using these oxats as much as I like them. I gotta stop being such a minimalist. Clearly we still have Kerbals much further away from Kerbin than ever before. This is our first time having Kerbals around the moon, so I guess I should take some comfort in that. We should be doing crew reports too, by the way. Oh, definitely. Oh, and the sight moon low is going. And the light moon low is done. And we did do a crew report briefly while over the poles. Well, probably that says polar highlands or something. Would be polar lowlands. Yeah. Alright, so there's my orbit. 20.2 kilometers, or 20.3 kilometers really, by 20.5 kilometers. Considering I did none of that setup. Pretty happy with that. Alright, next, there's going to be a whole lot of science to collect. Going to do another EVA report, of course, and a whole lot of crew reports, because I do have those set up to be biome specific. And besides, these folks can't just blow out of here and head home whenever they want, and that's all a result of this being a polar orbit. See how our orbit is more or less in line with the moon's orbit about Kerbin? What we have to do to find the most effective time to take off again is when that aligns once again. As the moon goes around, our orbit, thanks to conservation of angular momentum, will stay relatively fixed to the stars. But the moon, of course, is going to be going around its orbit and turning below us. So that means that our orbit relative to the moon will slowly be turning like this, in this direction. So we gotta wait until it's lined up again, and that's going to be when the moon is on the opposite side of its orbit, which is going to be 3 days from now. So we're going to plan our ejection right now. And it's really not too hard to do. All you gotta do is drop down a maneuver node and then use the orbit ahead buttons to push it ahead about 3 days into the future. Play around with the timing of it until you get that periapsis nice and close, or relatively close to Kerbin. That's roughly about right. And then you can see, does going ahead in orbit make it better or make it worse? Well, let's find out. Let's go ahead in orbit. That made it better. Okay, so we'll adjust this again. And just by playing around with this, and of course you can do this with the stock stuff down here, but you'll end up getting yourself to the best spot in which for us to make our getaway. It was then back to the Space Center, where I got to spend my 160 science that I've got so far. Remember, these guys are going to spend another 3 days orbiting the moon, collecting even more science for me. But for now, I put those points towards electrics for, most appropriately, better electrical storage, better electrical generation, but most importantly of all, blinky lights. I've got to get me some blinky lights. And then I thought I could just settle back with some gentle time warping, watch things getting built in Kerbal construction time, and just wait for the ejection burn for these folks to head back home. But oh no, Kerbalism wasn't done with me yet. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! A coronal mass ejection. Okay, wait. There it is. It's up here. Coronal mass ejection is incoming in 2 minutes. Exposed to moderate radiation of 0.02 rads per hour. Okay, I think we're going to be okay, because we're currently being exposed to that. Oh no, that's just below. Okay. Shh. Got 2 minutes to coronal mass ejection. We're going to be on the far side, on the dark side of the moon. I think we're going to be okay. And I think my Kerbals that are in orbit about Kerbin are going to be okay because, well, we're going to find out. But I would think they're safe behind the radiation. Okay, we got 1 minute. Okay, well, let's time warp. I think we're okay because we're in the shadow of the moon. And if the moon is not an effective radiation shield, I don't know what is. 4, 3, 2, 1. There. Coronal mass ejection hit Kerbin system. It's going to last for, whoa, 5 hours. Okay, so being behind the moon's not going to help us, is it? Oh, no. Alright, so right now... Okay, let's get this on. Right now we're still 0.02 rads per hour, but I got a feeling as soon as the sun comes up, that is going to change. There's no more electric charge in the P2. Oh my god, of course. Alright. Got this happening again. Okay, well, our solar panels are at least well exposed. What's our radiation like now? 5. We have 5 rads an hour for the next 6 hours. Oh my gosh. Tell me why I didn't invest in more shielding. I mean, it could be worse. We're in a polar orbit. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible to be bloody sun. It's entirely possible to be in an orbit that's in the sun like all the time. Five rads an hour. How are we hanging in there? We're up to 3% radiation. I don't know what we can do. I mean, I could scoot them back, but
by the time they're back, we're going to ride this out. That's what we're going to do. What I am going to do is... Oh, I don't know. And electricity, of course, is an issue. I am fully charged, I'm sure. No, I'm not. Oh, so many things wrong with this thing. 5% radiation stress. Maybe getting them home's not such a terrible idea. I mean, by the time they're home... Nice site, moon space low completed. By the time they're home, the storm will be pretty much over. And of course, we're not in a very good orbit from which to blast out of here. Well, let's get back to the Space Center and think about this. What I'm thinking, what am I thinking? Oh man, look at my science. Okay, let's do something good. I wanted to get this large re-entry pod next, so that's that. So what I think I will do is I think I'll just time warp from here because I can time warp more quickly here. But I'll keep an eye on our Kerbals about the moon. And hopefully they won't get into any trouble. Okay, we're back. The storm's over. We are at 41% 41% radiation, 1% stress. I'd be stressed if I was 40% irradiated. Oh, no, it's... Yep. Okay, let's just do our best to time warp these folks to the point where they can make their burn for home. And thankfully, no other coronal mass ejections were sent our way in the interim. So in a couple of days, we are ready. Let's blow on out of here. Just make sure our... Yeah, that's all set up, still good. I always find these ejection burns from the moon, they always look kind of funny to me because there's where we're going. Look which direction we're burning. Isn't orbital mechanics fun? There's something that when you watch even the really good space movies that really, and TV shows that really do try to get everything they can right. This is a situation I don't think I've ever seen in any movie, regardless of its... Oh, I'm sure it's out there, but I can't think of one, regardless of its scientific accuracy. If they had a situation where it was time for their characters to head back home, and they had the shot of the ship getting ready to do the burn to get home, that they would never have this orientation. It would so confuse, I think, the vast majority of the audience that this is how we get home. I recall a shot in The Martian where the Hermes, which was the big big main ship, was going to be doing its burn around Kerbin, and they were Kerbin around the Earth. Not a burn, but they're doing a gravity system around the Earth. And there's this one establishing shot where the ship is clearly burning in the wrong direction. It was before they made the decision to speed up and get the gravity assist around the Earth, so they should still have been burning away from the Earth, but the shot clearly shows them burning towards the Earth. Or, yeah, like they were going home but accelerating, which made no sense. Okay, there we go. About to say good job, Valentina, but of course you didn't do anything, did you? Alright, our periapsis is just over 34.5 kilometers. Oh, let's get these folks home. And of course,
This leg of the journey has already been done once by the uncrewed version of this vessel last episode. So this time around, there aren't any surprises waiting for me.
Alright, Val and Orlin, they're on their way back. And I don't think they are too worse for wear. Oh god. 43% radiation, that's less than half the radiation they're allowed to have. And there is, by the way, I'm pretty sure, a setting that they have permanent radiation limit. So when they get to their permanent lifetime radiation limit, you can't use them anymore. You have to retire your Kerbals. I have that turned off.
But we did hit all of our mission parameters, so for our first journey outside of Kerbin's magnetic field, well, this could have gone worse. And with that, I think I'm going to draw this episode to a close. I thank you for watching, and hope to see you again next time.